What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Roundup here on Touchline Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content going up on the channel. Two games I'm going to break down today. Big rivalries both in England and MLS. Of course, starting with the North London Derby. It is Arsenal, once again, who come away with a 1-0 win over Tottenham. Game itself, not particularly great. The big story going in, obviously, was the reshuffling that Mikel Arteta had to do because of Martin Odegaard's injury, because of Declan Rice's suspension, because Michael Merino, who probably would have been playing in place of Odegaard, is also injured. And so the ultimate solution was put Gabriel Martinelli back in the lineup on the left wing, drop Trossard back into the midfield, and then bring in Jorginho as your other midfielder to fill out that trio alongside Thomas Partey. And particularly in the first half, but for large portions of this game, you can make an argument that Martinelli was one of, if not the best players on the field. Yes, he could have squared that ball to Saka. Maybe he cost his team a goal there. But in the moments where Arsenal were actually creating chances, a lot of it was him and Jurrien Timber on that left side. That attack was not going through Saka. It was on the other side of the field. And Jorginho didn't do anything particularly special. He also didn't do anything particularly notable in a bad way. It was a serviceable performance for somebody who hadn't played this season. My point in all of that is that this is the exact same kind of thing we saw from Arsenal last season. And I know I made this point on at least one occasion, but when you're going up against Manchester City, who can leave Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva and everybody else on that bench, and then the next game it'll be Jack Grealish and Jeremy Doku, you get the point. You have to be more than 14 players deep. You have to be able to overcome injuries, overcome suspensions. You have to be able to get more than five or a handful of players who can go decide games for you and can really carry your attack like you saw Martinelli do in this game, right? It can't always be Saka. It can't always be Odegaard. Sometimes it has to be Kai Havertz. Sometimes it has to be Gabriel Martinelli. You need guys like Leandro Trossard who can step up and score big goals. But that's what allowed Arsenal to push Manchester City to the very end last season. Whenever they needed these kind of games and they needed their role players to step up, by and large, they did. And this game was another example of that. The midfield held together, didn't get overrun. Gabriel, the center back, scores a goal on a set piece. You had a good performance from Martinelli. Wasn't particularly special from Jorginho, like I said, but he did his job too. And you got 3 points that you desperately needed because you can't walk into the Etihad having already dropped 4 points in 4 games, come out of that game with anything other than a win, and feel even remotely decent about your chances of winning the league. They had to have these 3 points. Because now you're still within striking distance. If you get a draw, you win the home game. It's a very realistic possibility. All of a sudden, you're right there again. This came at a very bad time, both from a lineup and squad health standpoint, and from a what's coming next for Arsenal. But they got the job done. Wasn't particularly pretty. That's okay. This was about the role players stepping up once again. On the Tottenham side, it's the same story with set pieces, with Vicario not wanting to come get the ball, not being confident. It's not an accident that Arsenal put the ball where they did on that set piece that Gabriel scored from. Great delivery from Saka. And this is my question with Tottenham this season. You didn't know exactly what playing under Postecoglou meant by the end of last season because there were so many injuries and so many players in and out, and he didn't have the center back pairing he needs. And so you're not entirely sure how much of the frustration with his stubborn refusal to do anything different or adapt to plan B was justified and how much is the good outweighs the bad in this. At the start of this season, you see another key goal given up on a set piece. You see a bunch of possession, good play without an end product. Yeah, Dominic Solanke is helping hold the ball up. He's involved in things. And every opportunity he's had to score a goal so far. I know he did miss some time with an injury, but those chances that you want your striker that you just paid all that money for putting away, he's not putting away. And so now it's getting more into this frustration is justified. Because if you're going to do all of these things, yes, Ange deserves time. I'm not saying he should be fired or anything like that. But if you're going to continue to play this way, it has to work, or you're doing the same thing over and over expecting different results. Just because you can put passages of play together and you're really good between the two boxes doesn't mean you're going to be a good team and get the results that you should. This is almost an inherently unfair game because it doesn't matter what you do inside the boxes if you get taken advantage of inside the boxes. And that's where Spurs are right now. They give away too many cheap goals on set pieces. They don't take their opportunities. Other teams often take theirs. And it balances everything out. And it puts Spurs at, instead of an advantage in overall play, it puts them at a disadvantage because they're in the situations that really matter. They're not executing, and their opponents are executing at a higher level. Again, it's early. I'm not overreacting to this yet, but this is something to monitor. The same way I felt about Brighton before they actually started putting goals in the back of the net. XG, and I know this game wasn't a great example, but XG looks great. Doesn't matter if you don't actually score goals and doesn't translate into anything. That's where Spurs are. This has got to start translating, or they got to find a different way to do it because they're clearly not capable of scoring the goals they need to playing this way, if this is what it's going to be all season long. The other game I want to touch on real quickly is El Tráfico. The LA Galaxy end their little skid against LAFC, get a win, get back on track in the rivalry, make themselves the clear favorites in the Western Conference. And they do so, scoring 4 unanswered goals after going behind 2-0 in the second half. And I'm going to get to the Galaxy side of this because it's kind of two sides of the same coin here. So stick with me for a second because I want to start with LAFC. This game is precisely why I am so hard on this team and continue to ask questions. When you are the better team in a weaker conference, generally speaking, scoring the first goal and playing in transition and absorbing pressure and playing on the counter is going to work. It's why LAFC, they put the stat up during this broadcast, I believe it was 11-0-0 this season when leading at halftime. Against most teams, that works if you can score the first goal. My criticism has been there is no alternative. There is no ability to adapt. It just doesn't work if that doesn't go to plan. And so in this game, it easily could have been 3. Drew hit the woodwork. It easily could have been 2-1 at halftime. Galaxy had some chances. It was 2-0. And as soon as the Galaxy got that first goal, You just felt, and then Edwin Suiro pops up with a terrific goal to make it 2-2 immediately after. But as soon as the Galaxy got on the board, you could feel this turning. And there was nothing LAFC could do about it because they don't have the ability to go get on the ball and see out games. And so when you have these teams that are that good in possession, that can break you down and that can turn games on their head and reassert dominance so quickly. Specifically, I'm talking about Inter Miami and Columbus Crew here. Right? They give up early goals. You never feel like it's really a problem. You still feel like they're going to win the game. You're incredibly confident in the end result, even if they go down early like Inter Miami did this weekend. When weird things happen, they're able to reassert dominance like that. Look at the game they played against each other in Leagues Cup. Look at the Crew's run to MLS Cup, right? Different situations, different ways to win. They don't have to do it with one formula. And the Galaxy are kind of in that category too from a possession standpoint because they're a similarly built team that when they are clicking and when you have Marco Reus and Ricky Puig running the show with Gabriel Peck, sometimes you just can't hold them by absorbing pressure for 45 or 90 minutes. You have to go on the front foot and you have to take some of that possession from them. Same thing as Manchester City. You can't just sit there and defend for 90 minutes. They're ultimately going to break you down, especially now that Haaland is there. You have to do what Brentford did at the beginning of that game and actually take the game to them a little bit. It still ultimately wasn't enough, but Brentford could have been up 3-0 in the first 10 minutes. There's a reason Brentford have had success in their matches with Manchester City recently. You have to take some of the sting out of the game when you can, because you don't have that many opportunities. So that game was only going one way once the Galaxy got going. And then you get the red card, that just adds insult to injury, but it was never ending any other way. It's the same story in MLS Cup. It's the same story in the Leagues Cup final. If LAFC don't score first, they don't know what to do. And to me, that is a baffling flaw for a team with that much talent that spent that much money to build that roster. When you look at the other teams that are on their level in this league, every other one of them, you feel completely different about when they go down a goal. LAFC cannot go regain control of a game or take control of a game through possession. And so we had a couple things happen with this game. Like I said earlier, the Galaxy are the front runners in the Western Conference. They are the best team in the Western Conference. And what this game also showed, or I would say confirmed for me, is that the Galaxy, this is the final part of kind of running LA, because that was the conclusion I ultimately came to here, is that LA is the Galaxy city right now. The final part of that is they're not only, they should finish higher, they should win the West. The table suggests they're the better team. And they are more likely to reach MLS Cup and to win MLS Cup. Why? And specifically to win MLS Cup. Because they can solve problems. They can possess the ball. They don't have to do things one way. They're not a particularly great defensive team. They're flawed. But I'll take their flaws over LAFC's in terms of winning MLS Cup every single day of the week. Because when LAFC show up in these high-level games against the best opposition they play, it has been dud after dud after dud, and that includes MLS Cup. I know they won, but think about this. They have not won a final in regulation. Think about that. And so what I came away from this game thinking about is that let's just assume because if it's FC Cincinnati or somebody, it's a little bit different conversation from a matchup standpoint. But let's just assume Inter Miami or the Columbus Crew are coming out of the Eastern Conference. They're certainly the two favorites. If I'm Tata Martino, if I'm Wilfred Nancy, and you tell me you have to play an LA team, they're probably going to finish 1-2 in the conference. You're going to have to play let's just say they do, you have to play a top 2 seed. No doubt in my mind who I would rather face. It's LAFC. The Crew have shown it time and time again whenever they play them. Inter Miami, it's a similar story. I would be much more hesitant if I had to deal with the Galaxy. And that is a testament to patience to allow Greg Vanney to build. That is a testament to the work that has been done to build this squad, to turn this around, because they are awfully good now. Not only are they better than LAFC and should finish higher than them, they are also a more dangerous team in the playoffs. And that's ultimately what it's all about. That's all I've got for the weekend roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.